Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Fun Friday Ideas with me, Susan, your speech language pathologist. Today, what I want to start getting into are the steps leading up to logical thinking. Logical thinking allows us to be flexible both in our play and in our communication. It helps us with figuring out how to get our needs met in a variety of ways, not just one memorized phrase or not just one memorized sequence of activities. According to research by Dr. Stanley Greenspan, there are actually 6 developmental stages before we even get into our true logical thinking and problem solving as you and I would think about it. I really want to get into the beginning stages today, and then later on we'll start going into the higher level and more in-depth stages. So our first stage is when we're just tiny little newborn babies and we're fresh out of the womb and we're taking in the sensory experience of the environment around us. Learning, hey, we have ears and our ears hear things. And hey, we have eyes and our eyes can see things. And we have a mouth that can taste and touch and feel things. So that's why when we're little tiny baby infants, we're learning to develop these senses and start to just take the world in. We don't have an idea yet that our body is different from the world, or whether or not we like some of these things yet. That starts coming later in the second stage. In our second stage, that's where we start tying emotion to these experiences. So that's where a loud sound not only startles us, because that's a reflex, but we start to not like that startle. And so we don't like things that make a loud sound. Or we start to realize that mom's voice and mom's smell brings a nice full feeling in our tummy. So we like that full feeling. We start to like hearing the sound of mom's voice and the smell of mom's skin. So that's our second step in logical thinking, is not only taking that environment in as a sensory experience, but then tying that emotion to it, understanding our sensations internally, that when we have this feeling in our tummy and it hurts, and then we start to realize and connect that, oh, that means that we're hungry and what we want is that food from mommy. So a lot of connections going on there after we've taken in our environment as a sensory experience and then tying in that emotion to it. Third step in our development is starting to put together those very beginnings of cause and effect. So starting to realize that, hey, if I drop this, it's gonna fall. Learn to put these things together and get what we want. And on a very basic level, we're starting to experiment with, I can cry and then mommy appears, and I love mommy, and I love that full feeling I get in my tummy when I see mommy. So again, our first step, taking in that sensory experience of the world. Our second step is tying emotions and feelings to that. And then our third step is learning at a very basic level how we can interact and engage and experiment with the environment to see how you can, or the baby can, impact what's going on around. So some of our children, even though these stages are supposed to develop when babies, some of our children never really fully develop these connections between sensory experiences and emotions. So our kids get really wound up in their emotions, and they get really, 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 really tense. And they don't know what to do with that tension because they've never made a connection with how to calm themselves down. So that's where it's really important that you as the caregiver come in and no longer look at that tension as something that needs to be stopped and ended, but rather something that needs to be de-escalated and brought down, because that child probably never made a great connection with that anxiety and that tension, and then how to self-soothe and bring it down. So it's on us to balance that out. Another thing that can happen in these breakdown areas with our older children, that our older children might show, is when it comes to their body awareness and being able to move through space and being aware of where their body is and then how to sequence getting from point A to point B. Those all occur in these first 3 steps here. Our ability to regulate our emotions and self-soothe, and our ability to use our body to get around the environment. Our first 3 steps here are pretty important for that. So if your child is one that has trouble with understanding where their body is in space, some great games you can do are obstacle courses. So break out the pillows, break out the cushions from the couch, break out other soft items that you can maneuver around the living room or down the hallway, and have your child help you with this. Create tunnels, create ways to maybe climb up on the couch and then climb down on the couch. If you have a really big crash pad, maybe we could put that where you jump off the couch into the crash pad. Another great thing are these yarn mazes that you can do across the hallway. So you take strings of yarn and make like a spider web down the hall for your kids to climb under and over and around and through to get down to the other end of the hallway. By doing activities like this, you're helping your child understand where their body is in space and how to move their body to get from one end of the room to the other, to the goal at the other. Maybe you could put a treasure chest over there and you guys are pirates and you have to get through over there to get the treasure. Or maybe you're miners and you have to go through the cave. You can even break out some tools and use pretend tools to get from one end of the cave to the other where the treasure is. That way you're also working on that goal-oriented thinking. Another fun one that I like is if you put masking tape on the floor and think of different ways that you can go across the masking tape. So one thing you could do is have legs crisscross. It's kind of hard for me to show it to you with my fingers, but have your legs crisscross and the masking tape goes straight down here, straight down, and see how your kids can figure out to walk with each foot on either side of that line. Do they try and just hop it down, or do they figure out another way to move smoothly down the line without hopping? And then you can flip it and make them go backwards down the line. And think about other ways that you can get them to walk and get them involved in this too, to get them to go down that line. Maybe they need to swim on their tummy and try and do a swimming motion. Another thing you could do to help increase body awareness, this is a great task, is almost making it like a dare game. Like, I dare you to stand right here and reach that wall. How far do you have to stretch to reach that wall and touch it? How many steps? I think it takes 3 steps to get from here to there. How many steps do you think it takes? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. And see if you can get them to do that. I bet you can't do that in 4 steps. I bet you can't do that in 2 hops. See how turning this into a game, into a bet, then makes them have to figure out, well, it's all the way over there, and I'm supposed to only do it in 2 hops. How can I do that in 2 hops? Little bunny hops aren't going to work. I'm going to have to make them bigger. Working on these developmental stages that were supposed to really be solidified in an infant, but we're doing it in a way that is developmentally appropriate for an older child. All right, guys, let me know in the comments below what kinds of activities you got into in order to increase body awareness and sensory emotional regulation. All right, guys, until next week, take care.